Greetings, sailors, and we're back again with the Indomitable because I just love it so much, you guys. It's my new most favourite ship in the whole game. Do you believe me? In reality, I wanted to give this ship a fair shake and show that it's not totally useless if the RNG is with you. If you get good matchmaking, then yeah, you can have some okay games. But even those okay games come with a bunch of caveats, as we shall see. But I'll leave that till the score screens particularly to discuss it. Now, one of the things that I didn't fully spell out in that first look video when I was talking about the inability to really land heavy damage as torpedo bombers do, is that the fire damage that you inflict, of course, is fully repairable. This is one of the reasons why this is a less effective carrier, and why, although this is going to be a good game, it's not an equal amount of damage as that same result would end up being with torpedo bombers in the mix, because a lot of the damage I'm going to do is going to be based on fire, and that's going to be repairable damage. And so the targets I'm doing that damage against, particularly the battleships, because this is what you do in the Indomitable, is you farm battleships with fire damage like you would in a cruiser. They can just heal that back, and so you're not helping as much as you would be able to by going after those targets with torpedo bombers in another carrier. And one of the reasons why it's still not completely awful despite that is that you're still weakening enemies, and if you can get multiple fires especially, that can end up killing targets. But of course that's RNG based, that's fully RNG based, and so you can have games where you get unlucky. I have had games in this where I've gotten unlucky and ended up with maybe 60,000 damage. This was a game where I did get a lot luckier with RNG, but also I was deliberately trying to stack fires on single targets. You do have to, however, deliberately go after the same targets over and over again, which I wasn't especially doing in my preview video. I was trying to be a bit more team oriented there, even though it ended up being a bit of a failure in that regard. But the reason why I picked that recording was that it was the, well, not the best of the ones I recorded. I actually had better live recorded ones with higher damage, but it showed off things I wanted to show off about the Indomitable. This is also going to show off things I want to show off about the Indomitable, but with rather more emphasis on farming targets. So I lucked out there. The Turpits put out that double fire. I went after them again, got on another double fire. But it's fire damage, so it's not nearly as bad for them as it might be, especially when they're still relatively healthy. I'm also going to be, having said, you know, I'm deliberately trying to stack fires, I'm being a lot more selfish in this game. I am deliberately just trying to see how much damage I can get out of it, rather than whizzing around trying to spot destroyers and trying to support our own team's destroyers, like that Asashio up there right in the corner. I don't think I helped them out at any point at all with fighter cover. So this is really a selfish carrier, far more so than other carriers. Although, having played it a bit and having played the Graf Zeppelin, I think we almost prefer to play this than the Graf Zeppelin, just because although the Graf Zeppelin does have the torp bombers, and they do have a lot of utility, and although the rocket planes on the Graf Zeppelin are definitely better than these rocket planes, the AP bombers are just so naff. I've gotten so little use out of them, and against battleships they are particularly ineffective. This, by the way, you'll have noticed the weird judderiness and the lack of UI elements. This is why I don't usually do replays of carriers. I've had one or two people send me them or ask about featuring carrier replays, and yeah, honestly, if it hadn't been the case that this was a particularly good game, I wouldn't have bothered, and well, it also serves as a showcase as to why I don't do this anymore. But yeah, or, you know, show replays from carriers. But carrier replays have always been kind of buggy, to be honest. It's never a thing that's particularly meshed well with the replay system.
Fighter airborne.
So unfortunately I couldn't finish off that Tirpitz. I went for a rather hasty attack into that blob, and it was an attack that straddled the Tirpitz, but all of the bombs missed, sadly. And then, well, I had this Bismarck that was quite close to spotting me to deal with, so I went for them instead. Again, going for the Tirpitz, and maybe I can get them, but they've had a chance to heal at this point. And they've been able to heal a fair bit because it was fire damage that I did against them. And then by the time I get close enough, the Asashio actually gets the kill. So I was denied that bit of extra damage. But in terms of just raw damage, I'm already, you know, most of the way there from the previous game. Although, you know, I should probably point out one of the reasons, another reason I chose that previous game was because it was a bottom tier game. This is a top tier game, well, a flat tier 8 game, but that's still the best matchmaking in terms of not facing higher tier AA. Obviously, it would be even better if there was some tier 6s and tier 7s I could pick on, but still, you know, this is fairly good matchmaking overall. So I'm now off after this Massachusetts, and I'm being a lot more aggressive with my plane squads in this one, partly because it is a purely top tier game, and I was also just trying to be a little less cautious. Perhaps I was overly cautious in that first look video with making those pre-drops all the time, and in this game I was making a deliberate choice not to do that. But you'll see that it does start to cost me a lot quicker than that previous game. Towards the end of it, where I will start to be struggling in terms of sending out squads that aren't full. So I've got a choice here. I've got the Cleveland and the Massachusetts over on that flank. I've got a big blob to the northeast. And neither of them is particularly attractive, just because one involves a lot of flying and the other is a big blob of AA. So I'm actually trying to get my ship physically closer to the western flank, but also I am aware of the fact that we only have a couple of ships on the eastern flank, so I don't want to get caught out of position. So what I'm going to try and do is pick on the key, which is at the fringe edge of this group, and once upon a time this would have been extremely dangerous, because the key with manual AA in the old days was a bit of a beast, but these days it's not nearly so much, because all that long range AA has of course translated to flak, which is dodgeable. So I luck out. I get a fire with the rocket planes, which again, good RNG. So that certainly, you know, that certainly helps. If the RNG is kind to me, then absolutely that certainly helps. But I've now got only 3 planes in my dive bomber squad, so I'm probably not going to get the second attack from these dive bombers. In fact, I'll probably just recall the lone one. In fact, I think I did. That was a lot of in facts in very close proximity. Anyway, so let's see if we can set a fire, and I'm going to line up for a longitudinal drop, which of course you don't get to see because the UI doesn't work properly in replays for carriers. And I get a double fire, so excellent. That's going to be a big chunk more damage. But with the health they're on, that's not going to kill them. And it's fire damage, so they can fully repair it. So this time doing the safety drop because I'm starting to run down on plane reserves, and I think was going to go for the key again, but I'm not entirely certain. I guess we shall see. I probably could have profitably gone against the Massachusetts, but maybe I was trying to go for the key again. I'm not sure. But at that point the Cossack pops up, and so I'm going to switch to them. Give them a bit of a harassing strike, and, well, it'll do some damage, but as I've already covered, these rocket planes aren't particularly great. If it was the Graf Zeppelin rocket planes, you know, you can land 4-5k hits with those. Those are really quite potent. These, on the other hand, not so much. As it was, though, the Cossack was pulling back towards that blob of AA, so yeah, I just recalled that second strike rather than throw the planes away. So out with the bombers once again. And I think I was being a little indecisive here, so rather than go back to that blob and risk these planes, after a moment I thought to myself, okay, let's go for the Massachusetts instead. They still have a decent amount of health, and there's a fair chance they may have used a damage control party sometime recently, so I might get some fires going on them as well. Over 100k damage at this point, so it's going to be good for credits at least. But as I've repeatedly said, you know, if it was that equal amount of damage, but at least some of that inflicted with torp bombers, it would be worth more, because it would be less repairable.
We're under attack.
And that's one of the things with, like, one of the ironies with battleships being your primary target with these bombers, is that they're also the most capable of dealing with the fire damage that you are trying to inflict.
Victory is in sight.
If you can manage to get it on cruisers, of course, there's not that many cruisers when you're in this top tier situation that have a heal available. But you're going to get that much less fire damage out of cruisers because it burns for less duration. And of course the fire ticks are based on the actual percentage or a percentage of the ship's total health. So you're never going to get those raw damage numbers from going after cruisers alone. And as I covered previously, cruisers can dodge your dive bomber attacks much more readily. So I've now got to wait potentially, or I could send off another half full squad of the dive bombers. I've got another fire going on Massachusetts, but they are under heavy fire, so it was only one fire. But it was still quite lucky because it was a fire from the rocket planes, and it's quite a low chance of fire. One thing, maybe I haven't mentioned this, and I was going to mention this. One thing that is definitely different to this game than the previous first look video is that instead of just reusing my implacable captain, I took one of the spare 19-point captains I have and put it in this with different skills, basically, including Last Gasp. A lot of people in the comments pointed out under that video, well, not a lot of people, a couple of people, that Last Gasp is an especially useful skill given the small squad sizes. And if the UI was working properly, you probably have noticed that working, given that the thing instantly tops up your booster bar. But of course the boost bar is only intermittently showing, so you don't really get to properly tell that. So let's have a go at the Richelieu. The north is completely secured. We're going to get the one strike, and it's a messy drop across the beam, but the Baltimore was right behind, so that even just that's enough AA. You know, those two ships plus the Cossack. Not like the Cossack has amazing AA, but like just those two ships are enough to combined stop me going around for another drop. You really do have to go for the single targets. And while I'd have liked to head back towards that Richelieu to maybe stack another fire on them, because I'm getting some fire damage, there's the much more pressing problem of this Asashio. I really do have to deal with this now. I can't just selfishly go for more damage. I have to selfishly protect my own ass from a destroyer that might kill me instead. So we're going to loop back round, and I can just drop a fighter on them as I'm doing this. The enemy carrier got taken out relatively early, you probably noticed that, so most of this game I haven't even had to particularly worry about air control or trying to shield allies. So there really was a lot of things going for me as an Indomitable in this particular game. So there's another pass and fire going, and a little readjustment of course, and back up with the planes.
Airborne.
It's not that we're out of planes completely at this point, it's just I don't have another full squad ready to cycle. Once those planes on transit or come back to the ship, I'll be able to send up, well, at least another half squad. My fighter has been doing the work meanwhile, and a lot of the time your fighters in just all carriers are as much use keeping destroyers spotted for a period as they are actually combating enemy attack planes. In fact,
Maintaining present course.
they are often more use in that role than combating enemy attack planes. So anyway, he's done, but there's now a Cossack to deal with, and the big blob of allied ships has moved around to D, so I'm kind of alone here a bit. And the Cossack is either trying to go for the Sashio or for me. So it looks like I need to try and help out either way, but it turns out the Cossack's going into the cap, and so yeah, that looks like I'm going to have to once again go for a destroyer, although with the dive bombers it's not optimal, so I'm going to attack the Richelieu, and then I see the low health Baltimore and think, yoink! Well, it's one less ship, it gives us extra points, and if they had any radars left there may have been a threat to the Asashio, but they were backing off up towards the middle of the map anyway. That Asashio, by the way, and this has been a game of Asashios, yeah, they pulled that group of ships away on a fairly merry dance. Although it wasn't just the Asashio, there were other ships down in that corner as well. But that left our team in the middle free to just romp around and cap things, basically. So we're just about finished. Not quite done all the damage yet. I have been spotted by this Cossack, but there's nobody else in range to actually give them any fire support, so it's just them with their guns against my full hit points. And I don't really have to worry about torpedoes, given that I'm headed away from them, and they've only got, what, a single launcher? It is a single launcher on the Cossack, isn't it? So yeah, really not worried here at all. I've got a Witherer, by the way, and now a Confederate. I mean, once upon a time with the preview versions, it was labelled the Conqueror of the Sky, and there can still be an element of that, certainly. But you need a lot of things to stack up in your favour to get this kind of match. This is one of the reasons why I don't pick matches like this for my review and preview videos, because this isn't representative of the average gameplay at all. Matches like the one I showed in the first look video, while it wasn't a particularly amazing match, that was the point. I don't go for the amazing matches when I'm showing off videos, because there's usually a lot of different factors involved in bringing that amazing match to fruition. I'm not even sure this really counts as an amazing match, to be honest. I farmed a bunch of fire damage against a couple of battleships, and have been lucky in various regards. I mean, if nothing else, my team was decent enough that they didn't especially need my help. So, yeah, my team was able to do their thing, I was able to do my thing, and I ended up with 152,000 damage done, 1900 base XP, enough for the top of the team, which is not that common a thing, but, you know, I was damaging destroyers as well as farming all that damage on battleships, and there you go, 50k on that Tirpitz, 38k on the Key, and a bit on the Richelieu. A lot, that was fire damage though. Over half my damage done was fire damage alone, 77, nearly 78k, and a lot of that, if not most of that, was against battleships, which can fully repair it. So It's damage, but it's damage worth less than if it had been heavy damage. So that's the Indomitable with among the best possible circumstances that it can have. It could be better in terms of matchmaking, but I don't think it could be a lot better. In fact, if it had been better in terms of matchmaking, there would have been less hit points for me to chew through, potentially. So yeah, that's as good as it gets, really. And hopefully this, in addition to that first look video, gives you some idea, some fair idea of the capabilities of this ship. I still don't think it's very good. I still think it's the worst of the tier 8 carriers, but it's not completely unplayable. It's just, with the tier 8 price tag, there are better options, and in terms of having fun, as I said, I much prefer the Ark Royal, because although the planes are really slow, you've got those triple drop torpedoes, and at tier 6, that alone can be a lot of fun, and it can make a lot of difference to a match. So that's it for this replay. Hopefully you found it enjoyable, and if you did, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.